Welcome to this episode of Wicked Problems. Today, I'm joined by Linda Grave. Linda is an entrepreneur who has built successful companies within the renewable energy and EV sectors over the last 18 years and who has a wealth of experience building successful EV charging networks. She's focused on business growth and development within the EV sector. Now, in 2016, she built out the EV driver network of public charge points in the east of England, with an emphasis on providing an easy access pay-as-you-go network for everyone to use. She sold that network in January 2020 to allow her to focus on helping others to create the best user-friendly EV charging solutions. She's a pioneer in the EV roaming and interoperability in the UK, passionate about ensuring the barriers to access are lowered and that customer satisfaction is paramount, and that's what she helps her customers to do. I'm talking with Linda today about that, about her earlier experience in green and renewable energies, and where she thinks the market is going to next. We're also going to talk about EVEX 2025, which is a really great hands-on EV exhibition stroke conference, I suppose is the best way of saying it. She can do it more justice than I can. Have a listen. Enjoy. Welcome, Linda. It's lovely to have you on Wicked Problems.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Toby. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm really interested in your story because I just think it's a very interesting story, actually, and on the EV charging side. And, if we rewind the clock, I think you started in green energy. I mean, you probably had a life before that as well, but if I think about your journey into the EV charging world, it seems to have started with green energy side.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's not go too far back, being as old as I am. So, the renewable energy side, I was very much involved in solar PV. Really, I started with solar thermal, but with the solar PV, as it started to make headway, I just absolutely loved what it was capable of doing, and this production of energy by a simple panel and inverter. It just not rocket science, just absolutely worked. So I love that side of it. We also did battery storage. We did a lot with heat pumps and biomass. We did all sorts of things. So my business partner and I had started that business some time ago at his farm. And we had a lot of farming customers, and we found a real sweet spot with farmers who wanted a 30 kilowatt PV system on their barn roofs. And then it really worked with different things they were doing on the farm, particularly with irrigation. So I even got into I did the very first floating solar in the east of England, and where we literally floated the solar on the reservoir, and it married perfectly with the irrigation pumping season that was required. So there's some really good product out there now, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper than it was back in the day. So it no longer requires the subsidies, because it is cost effective in its own right.
So it's cheaper and probably, and I suspect more advanced in the technology side, so it's more effective as well.
Yeah, so I think, per square centimetre, as we used to look at it, you're producing more energy. The panels are more powerful. I think the first panels we did were something like 120 watts per panel. For the same size panel now, physical size, you're doing about 400 watts. So yeah, I mean, it's great tech, and it's now, as I say, because it's now mass produced, it's so cheap. And actually, it drives me nuts seeing massive warehouse roofs without solar PV on it, because there is no reason anymore not to integrate solar PV when you're building big warehousing and things like that. Producing your own power to run that building just makes logical sense. Battery storage is still not cheap as chips, but sadly, with the energy crisis, as it was with the invasion of Ukraine, we did see energy prices increase greatly. So that's part of the reason why it becomes more cost effective now as well, because electricity is expensive. And if you can generate your own, then you absolutely should be looking at doing so.
And not just for cost reasons, but it's also more secure in terms of supply, right? So if I've got that PV and then I've got the battery on the wall, actually, if we can't get the energy from interconnects, I've still got some energy coming into my house. So there's a bit more security that way. And if you multiply that by however many millions, that's actually quite significant.
Absolutely true. And as I say, so as the cost has come down, it's made it more affordable. What's always sort of struck me is that people spend maybe 10,000 on a kitchen refit. And in 10 years' time, that's an old kitchen and you want to do it again. Solar PV just keeps producing. It just lasts and lasts. I mean, I've got a system on my own roof, which I've now extended, but, I installed that 15 years ago and it's still producing. It's not had anything done to it at all. I don't yet have a battery storage system myself. But I have a car with a very large battery, so I'm utilising that as much as I can, and I'm quite excited about the potential of V to X, not necessarily vehicle to grid, but vehicle to home, vehicle to other appliances and things, and utilising that battery. And I think, these are exciting things to come. But yeah, it kind of starts with the solar. If you can put the solar on your roof and start there, if you can't do that, if you don't have you might be able to invest in the community solar project. Those are quite exciting. So there's still ways to potentially have your own production of solar.
You were talking there about, PV, and okay, you might have a battery on your wall or you might not, but you've got your PV, and then you've also got your car, which is a battery in its own right, outside your house. And you said you got quite excited about that. I believe you got so excited you even started a charging company.
Yes. So I think back in the day, as I say, my early customers were really interested in solar PV. There were subsidies at the time, so a lot of it was not necessarily about the environment. It might have been about generating an income from subsidies. But later on, as those subsidies went away, people started asking me about electric cars. I thought, I don't really know a lot about them. So I started looking into it, and then I heard about this chap called Elon Musk and Tesla. And I got really excited about the potential of the Tesla Model 3. I'd seen a Model S. Anyway, my customer base was starting to ask. I looked into home chargers for them, and that wasn't rocket science. We researched the best. We were very lucky that where we live, we're close by a company called EO. So EO charging was, very local. We knew the guys well, so we looked at doing a few of those, and also Zappi. So we had a sort of couple of favourite chargers that we installed for our clients. I just decided that with my little Nissan Leaf that I'd got at the time, if I wanted to go out and see my customers, I probably needed some public chargers out and about, because I could only do about 60 miles. So I set about installing some public charging. And I was lucky enough to get a contract to do this with the East of England Co-op. So I started rolling out some public charging with the East of England Co-op. It was AC charging, 22 kilowatt mainly. And it was extremely useful in promoting electric cars and saying, you can do this. You can travel a bit further. You can charge, you can do a top-up charge to get round. And it was way before rapid charging was getting going, because this is sort of 2016. It was adding that level of security for everybody, thinking, I can have an electric car and I can do this. So that's sort of why that started. In the meantime, I put my £1,000 down with Elon Musk to get my Tesla Model 3. It was a bit of a punt. It was you pay us, and if we get enough people who are interested, we will build it. So I was lucky enough to be one of the first people in the region to get the Tesla Model 3. And so there was a great deal of interest, and people were coming to see it. And I think I was doing quite a lot of little rides around. But yeah, so that's sort of the early days of the network building. It wasn't an easy thing to do, Toby. I have to say, all the different elements that needed to come together to build a charging network. I needed the hardware, I needed the software, I needed the connectivity, I needed the power, I needed the knowledge to pull all these things together. And then I realized once it had grown a bit, that if people were using it outside of office hours, I really needed some customer service as well. Every new network back in the day started by somebody takes their mobile home phone home with them that night. And if there's a call, you try and sort it out over the phone. But then you started to need, a proper customer service solution. So I went about searching for one of those, and someone from a software company came to me, and they'd basically seen that there was a need for this in Europe. So we sort of, I helped to introduce that into the UK, and quite a few of the networks then got on board with realizing that, if you've got customers, you really need to have somebody at the end of the line to help them if something does go wrong.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that only too well, because back in 2020, I was working with Shell Recharge or New Motion as it was then.
Yes.
And they called it the DC team. So basically the rapid charging team, as you probably would call it these days. But back then it was, it's AC or it's DC. But, the DC team had 4 people working on it, and they each were taking turns with a mobile phone. And they were covering Europe, right? So they were getting calls from Germany, from Netherlands, from Belgium, from the UK. And of course, yes, if you're providing a service and you've got customers, you have to be fit for purpose in their eyes. So just having a 4-person team with a mobile round robin isn't going to cut it. Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, and it was like that forgotten element. And for me early on also was connectivity. It was like I'd got a hardware provider and I've got a software provider, and we sat down, we had the meeting together that yes, everything will work. Absolutely it will work. And we started installing, then we found out, no, actually that software wasn't compatible with that hardware. It needed an upgrade. And then there's SIM connectivity to go with this as well. And you're in an area where there's a poor signal. So there were all these different elements that, you really do learn the hard way. But all those experiences help to shape where we are today. And I think, as you know, recently, we've just had the new regulations have come in to ensure that all charge point operators have 24/7 customer service. And, it still surprised me when, even in this late day, that people hadn't thought of that element as being a highly important part of your network. If you irritate a customer, they will definitely shout about it. It will be on social media and everywhere. If they have a good experience, you probably don't talk about it at all. You just crack on and carry on with your day, because it's what you expect, isn't it? Plug in, charge, get what it says on the tin and move on. But, we know we've still got some poor experiences out there, but they are becoming much less frequent, I would say. And the regulations will definitely help.
And the regulations will help. I think there's still some confusion about, what does it actually mean to have 99% uptime, for example.
Absolutely.
Which bit are we counting? But it is maybe one way of, one of the sort of confused points that I've heard people raise. But yes, I think, the intention of the regulation is good, and it's nudging people in the right direction. And we're very keen we're a consultancy, but we're very keen that people do the thing for we hear things like project to product. That's a phrase that goes on in a lot of agile communities, and we actually go, it's more like, let's go project to customer. It's all very well going to a product, but if you build the wrong product and the customer doesn't want it, or it doesn't work in the right way for them, it's not really a product, right? Or a service. It has to be something that works for the customer and works really well for them. Okay, so you started this network up, and it was successful, and then you sold it, I think back in 2020, is that right?
That's right, yeah. So I got to the stage where I was realising that, that it was either going to be massive growth and investment required to go bigger, or I was going to sell and concentrate on consultancy, which I was doing. I was helping people. I was getting quite a lot of questions about how should I do this? What did you do to do that? And how did you overcome this, etc. And I really rather liked that side of it. So I decided that was the route I was going to go. I was going to focus on helping others build fit for purpose EV charging infrastructure, and had a request regarding my network, and I sold it to somebody else who was using the same back office software, a company called Plug and Go, and they wanted to grow. They were based in Jersey, and they had some in Gibraltar and some in south of England, and they wanted to grow. So yeah, we agreed a sale, and I sold my network to them and stayed sort of helping them for a couple of years in the background advisory. And then I was able to focus more on the consultancy with a sort of a clear conscious. There was still a lot of secrecy and nervousness in the industry about, data and sharing of data. And I think there still is, but maybe it's becoming a bit less, But people were really quite nervous. And so if they knew you were a charge point operator yourself, they were going, oh, I'm not sure I want you to help me. You might just use my information. It was a really interesting first stage, and I would bring together other people in the industry, excellent consultants who would maybe they were between jobs or they were doing something, but they had some time that they could offer, and we could then look at some projects that maybe required different levels of expertise. Yeah, so we helped a couple of charge point operators launch. There's a new one that's just started quite recently. They're using the Fuse back office, but they're in Leighton Buzzard. And they have built a really nice charging infrastructure site that is one of their sites. But this particular one has bus charging. It comes completely off the A road with proper signage,
Nice.
a Starbucks coffee, or is it Costa? I can't remember, name check. But, a big site with good rapid charging and enough space now it was built for buses, one area of it, but it's going to be for trucks and, HGVs and fleets and various things. So there's some really nice sites coming in, looking at what's coming next and how do we prepare? How do we make sure that this transition can happen? These things need to be done side by side. You can't just introduce all the vans and trucks and not have the charging infrastructure. So you need a bit of both. You need to look at the routes that they're travelling and what they require. And I'm sure, as it's you don't want an overhanging canopy where you're trying to bring a truck in, and the cables need to be long enough and high enough and all these different things. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that need to be looked at when you're considering your charging infrastructure. It's not just about the time of day.
Yeah, and I can see that because it's still a relatively new industry on the car side, but it's a lot more advanced than it is for trucks and so on, right? Because there aren't that many trucks at the moment. They're coming, but you need to have that infrastructure built out, and the demand, their batteries are bigger, they need more. They're more inclined to need rapid charging. They can charge on tacho breaks, or they can charge on a return to depot, but that means their charging schedule is slightly different because they need to be maximised out on the road, etc., etc., etc.
Exactly.
And we see all sorts of things that people are now starting to think about. Oh, what if you're towing a caravan in a car? How do you get into a slot?
Yeah. And then also there's this charging infrastructure that's hugely expensive to install and maintain. And then it's how do these operators perhaps look at sharing that charging infrastructure a bit more? If you're using nearly all public charging infrastructure is used mainly during the day, there's not so much usage at night. Is there an opportunity to share that for overnight charging, and sweat the asset a bit more, and really get some good utilisation? So yeah, bringing parties together. And as you said earlier, it's about discussing these things early enough with the vehicle manufacturers, with the end users, the height of the screen, all these different things. Is it fit for purpose? Yeah.
Yes, an example I often give is, I won't name them, but one, and I think it wasn't just one motorway service area provider. There was, I think they were all guilty of this, perhaps to a degree in the beginning, where they would do things like, we can save, €200 on the price of a cable by making it 1.5 meters instead of 5 meters long. And if we do that over thousands of cables, that's actually quite a lot of money. But then without realizing that means that people would have to mount the curb in a dangerous way, which might shut the charger down, which costs $2,500 every time you call out somebody to fix it.
Yeah.
That's just a very, very glib example, but
quite accurate, Toby, I would say. Yeah, I've had to do that myself, and a particular charging station. Yeah. Not easy.
So and then to make it worse, it's in a dimly lit area of the forecourt, and because it's been an afterthought, because the whole thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And I had it with the various companies earlier on, councils, and well, we'll have one if because we think we should, but can you stick it over there at the back of the car park, where it's not really in the way? You think, yeah, we need a different approach. I think luckily now that's gone, and I'm incredibly lucky here where I live in Suffolk. Our county council is fully on board. They've got a large portion of the Levy fund, or levy fund, I'm never sure what you're supposed to say, and they are totally on board. And also with my EV Experience Day, this event that I run, they approached me this time saying, Linda, come on, can we do the event again? Let's get it going, because sorry, Toby, I know you're going to ask me about it. I just thought I'd mention it. It's a way of getting the general public to come and test drive the vehicles. Just come and see for yourself. I'm going to bring loads of vehicles to one place. You can look at them side by side and go, oh, that boot, yeah, maybe that's not as big as I thought, or yeah, it's quite high up, or I don't like the way the doors open, or where the charge point is. But the moment you get to see loads by side and actually test drive them, I know that's when people fall in love with them. Yes. Once they get behind the wheel, all the arguments and the fun and everything, the fear, uncertainty, doubt just starts to fade away, because they are seriously good performance vehicles. So, where's the argument once you've tried? So, I've been doing this event now since I started building that network back in 2016, when I thought, well, now I've built the network, I better get people to test the cars. And all the local dealerships are on board. And now with the ZEV mandate and everything, it's becoming more important that they sell X number of electric vehicles. And so I'm running the event again this year. It's on next year it'll be on the 9th of July. I was
going to ask the date. Yeah, 9th of July. So that's MX 2025. Yeah, EVEX 2025.
EVEX, 2025. It was short for EV Experience Day. But I think this time, and we introduced a bit last time, but we have more renewable energy people there as well, because this link with solar battery storage, is really important. We also had vans, and we had the Mercedes e-Actros truck. So we will have a range of vehicles, and we might even have some bigger, a bit more HGV stuff available for people to test. We're extremely close to the port of Felixstowe as well. So, we feel as though maybe we need to bring the trucks in and try and get that, in the public's eye as well. But the idea of, as I say, testing the vehicles and getting people along, and Motability are on board. They'll be with us. They had 3 adapted vehicles with them last year. To show consumers, yeah. So it's all encompassing, isn't it? It's just a vehicle. It's got a different fuel source. We need to stop this fear, uncertainty, doubt, and get people to come along and try it and see what you think.
I think it's. I mean, in a different. Just shout out to Auto Trader do this thing, right, where they go for EV skeptics, and they bring them to a sort of a racetrack, I think, and then they take them round in an EV.
Yeah.
And they question them afterwards and say, "Are you still a skeptic?" And I think there's not been one person that was.
It's really good, isn't it? Particularly when you've got a real doubter,
Yeah. And you can understand people's doubts when they articulate them. You go, yeah, okay, well, I understand on the face of it sounds reasonable, right? They burst into flames every 10 minutes, or they run out of juice when you're on the way to the shops or whatever. But when you experience it, you find out that's not actually true. Yeah. That none of that is true. And that, they can drive really good distances, and they're comfortable and they're fast, and the driver experience is really good.
Exactly.
Then I think that just evaporates, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the objections.
The AA were one of our sponsors last year, and they get their presentation, and I think it was less than 4% of breakdowns in EVs are due to running out of battery. So it's a tiny proportion, particularly when you compare it to people that run out of petrol or diesel. I mean, it's just tiny. It doesn't happen so much. But you're right. I mean, there are so many arguments against to start with, and we're having to deal with it daily, aren't we? We're kind of fighting big oil in many ways. It's there's a lot of stories out there about them, not having the range, and then it's amazing how everybody has a granny in Scotland that they need to visit. Absolutely everybody I speak to. And there's no way they'll get there. So, and then you start to talk about, well, after you've been driving for 2 to 3 hours, do you not feel that you probably need a stop, somewhere? We need to help people understand, and it's all about getting the messages across, and that's what we continually try to do, to fight the fear, uncertainty, doubt, and just give some correct information. And maybe it's not for everybody yet. That's fine. Come when you're ready. It's a transition, not a cliff edge. We are moving towards electric vehicles because they're better for the environment, they're better for everybody, and they're really good vehicles. So, rather than...
We love to explode a good myth here on this podcast. And I think there's one that you're sort of alluding to as well, which is we talk about the ZEV mandate. And a lot of people interpret the ZEV mandate as being they're forcing me to switch to electric.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, that's not true. They're forcing the car manufacturers to start selling more and more electric. But that doesn't mean you as a consumer has to go and buy an electric. You could be in the what is still actually a majority of cars that are ICE vehicles that are being sold. But even if it wasn't, there's nothing to stop you going. Most car purchases are secondhand anyway. So if you really are ardently after an ICE vehicle, you can still go and buy it. Nobody's standing there with a shotgun saying, "Oh no, I'm afraid not."
I think that's it, Toby. I think is it only 26% of people ever buy a new car or something? It's if you look at the masses, they're buying used cars. And what's fabulous now is that there are all these used EVs available, and they're really good prices, some superb prices. Then, of course, there are the stories out there that, you don't want to use EVs, the battery won't last. We've got vehicles on the road with 100,000-mile warranty on the batteries. And they're lasting longer than that anyway. There's some fantastic EVs out there that are still losing only a tiny percentage of their battery capacity in numbers of years. So when you look at the distances that people actually drive, I would say that any family that has a 2-car household, one of those can be an EV right now, without doubt. So, you just need to look at it in a different way. When, people, you start to ask them about their annual mileage, and then you find out, well, you only do 7,000 miles a year. Come on.
The average journey is 11 miles, I think, is the average person's
bonkers,
journey,
isn't it? Yeah. In fact, we should just be selling bikes, let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Linda, if people want to find out more about the work you do in the consulting side, if they want to find out more about the great event, EVEX 2025, where can they go to find out more? What's the place?
The website, which will be updated with a link to the event shortly, but info@evdriver.co.uk is the email address. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well. So quite a few different ways. And we'll be doing a lot more promotion of the event over the next few months. But at the moment, I just want people to save the date. If you're in the East Anglia region, do come along, because it's definitely worth checking out some of the new vehicles.
So that date is 9th of July.
9th of July at the Suffolk Showground, which is Trinity Park in Ipswich. The idea is that the sort of morning will be quite business focused, and the afternoon will be general public Motability in the afternoon. But, if you can only come in the morning, you come in the morning, it's fine. And we'll have some presentations and things throughout the day.
So what we'll do is we'll put a link to your website. So that's evdriver.info.
Yes, so evdriver.co.uk is the website.
Sorry, .co.uk. Yeah.
And the email address is info@evdriver.co.uk.
I was switching my info round to the other end of the URL, so that's my bad. Right. But we'll put the correct URL at the bottom. We'll put a link to, if the event link is up at the time we publish, we'll put that as well. But if it's not, we'll also maybe put a link to last year so people can see a bit about what's going on, because I know there's some YouTube videos.
There's a little video explainer there. And it's Ground Transport Events team helping me organise the event. So they'll be putting a lot more on their website too.
Fantastic. Sounds like a really good day out. I'm going to try and get there myself. So
that'd be great. Well, you'd be very welcome, Toby.
Excellent. Linda, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Toby. Much appreciated.